So today we're going to start Chapter 3, Section 1. Today we're going to be identifying pairs of lines and angles. So the first is the definition of parallel versus skew lines. So parallel lines are coplanar lines that do not intersect. Skew lines are non-coplanar lines that are neither parallel nor intersecting. Now, a lot of times I like to show you some real life examples. So I'm going to show you my tissue box in a minute, and I'm going to show you the parallel lines on the tissue box as well as the skew lines on the tissue box. And I'm also going to talk about parallel lines and skew lines in relation to the classroom. Now we're going to talk about parallel planes. And again, I could use my tissue box again and my classroom. When I talk about parallel planes in the classroom, I could talk about the ceiling and the floor. They would be parallel. The ceiling never intersects the floor. I could talk about the front wall and the back wall. They would be parallel. Same thing with my tissue box. Now I'm going to go ahead and identify the parallel planes on this slide, but let me show you on my tissue box. So in this picture, I've got a bunch of parallel planes. And again, planes that do not intersect are parallel. So in this picture, I could have the top, which is right here, and then I could have the bottom. These would be two parallel planes in this picture, and I'm going to name it with 3 letters. So I could say that I have plane ABH, any combination of the 3 letters on the top there. Now the symbol for parallel are 2 straight lines. So I could say plane ABH is parallel to plane DCE. Parallel planes with the left side and the right side. So I could do this one with this one. And again, I'm going to name 3 letters. So I could say plane AGF, and then the other side, plane BCE. Pick any 3 letters going around that side. And then I also have the front and the back. So I could have the back of this, which is going to be ABCD back here. So I could call that one, pick 3 letters, ABC. But then I also have the front here, maybe I'll do this, would be up front here, and it would be the GHEF. So I would pick 3 of those letters. So I could say it's GHE. Any combination of 3 letters going around each one of those planes. And again, remember the 2 lines are the symbol for parallel. The next slide has 2 postulates. The first one is called the parallel postulate, and this one states that if there is a line, I'll draw a line, and a point not on the line, so I could draw the point right above it, then there is exactly 1 line going through that point that would be parallel to the given line. So then I can draw only 1 line that would be parallel to the black line that I drew first. And that's what your parallel postulate states. So if you have 1 line and a point not on the line, then you can only draw 1 line through that point that would be parallel to the first line. Same thing for the perpendicular postulate. So again, remember the symbol for parallel are going to be 2 straight lines. The symbol for perpendicular, that's the upside down T. And the perpendicular postulate states that if there is a line and a point not on the line, so same scenario, if I draw my line and then a point not on the line, then there is exactly 1 line through the point that would be perpendicular to the given line. So I could draw only 1 line perpendicular that would go through that point and would be perpendicular to the given line. And again, remember perpendicular lines, we always need to look for that little right angle symbol. And remember, it always takes 2 points to form a line. The next definition is the definition of a transversal. And a transversal is a line that intersects two or more coplanar lines in different points. So in this picture, my transversal is going to be line M here. This is the transversal. So pictured here, the transversal in this diagram is line M. The other two coplanar lines are going to be J and K. When this transversal intersects two other coplanar lines, it creates 8 angles. And these 8 angles are going to have special names. But right now on this slide, we're just going to identify which of the 8 angles are interior angles and which one are exterior. So when we refer to interior angles, I'm talking about angles that are in between the two coplanar lines. So these are inside the two coplanar lines, all of these angles here in the blue section. This would be the interior portion of my diagram. So these are the interior angles, and I'm going to label them. So we have angle 3, angle 4, angle 5, and angle 6 are all interior angles. Then the exterior angles, or the angles that are outside of the two coplanar lines, that could be 1 and 2, and 7 and 8. They're outside of the two coplanar lines. So angle 1, angle 2, angle 7, and angle 8. Those are the exterior. Think of it as exiting the two coplanar lines. Now, your transversal may not always be drawn vertically. It may also be drawn horizontally. So for example, now another thing you could do is if you want to box in and make a box around the angles so you can see which ones are inside, you can do that. But let me draw the same 8 angles, but I'm going to draw my transversal horizontally. So let's say this time lines J and K went this way, and then the transversal this way. So this would be M, and then my 2 lines J and K. And again, it's going to create 8 angles. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't matter how you number your picture. I'm numbering it differently so that way I can get a list of different interior angles. Every picture will be different depending on the diagram that's provided. So now my interior section of this is going to be right here. My exterior will be the purple, and we can list them. So interior in this picture are going to be angles 2, 3, 6, and 7. The exterior angles would be on the outside of those lines J and K, would be angle 1, angle 4, angle 5, and angle 8. So be able to identify when an angle is interior or exterior. Now we have some special angle pairs. The first one are called alternate interior angles. So this is why it was important that we were able to identify where the interior portion of our diagram is. Then the word alternate, what we're going to realize here is that means opposite. So when you have 2 angles on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're interior angles, but they can be they're non-adjacent. And what I mean by non-adjacent, they cannot be two interior angles that are next to each other. So in this picture, my transversal again is line M. My interior section is going to be all of this in blue. And when I'm looking for alternate interior, I'm looking for one on, in this picture, one on the left side of the transversal and one on the right side, but they can't be adjacent. So I can't pick 3 and 4 because they're adjacent. So my alternate interior could be angle 3 and angle 6. They're both interior, they're on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're not adjacent. So the first pair is angle 3 and angle 6. The other pair here could be angle 4 with angle 5. These are alternate interior angles. Now we're going to identify the exterior. So 1 and 2 and 7 and 8 are exterior angles. And then now I need non-adjacent, so they can't be next to each other. They're on opposite sides of the transversal. So in this picture, I can say that angle 1 and 8 are alternate exterior. And then I can also say that 2 and 7 are alternate exterior. They're on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're in the exterior location, and they're non-adjacent. So these would be alternate exterior. Now what's going to come up tomorrow is we're going to take lines J and K, and we're going to straighten them up and make them parallel. Once we straighten them up, then all of these angles that we're talking about on this slide, the alternate interior pairs and the alternate exterior pairs, are going to be congruent, but that's coming tomorrow. Right now, our lines are not parallel, but we can still create these special angle pairs. Next vocabulary word is same side interior or consecutive interior. Our book uses the second name, consecutive interior. Be aware, though, of the name same side interior in case you see that used on a standardized test, like a PSAT or an SAT. So this one, they're going to be two interior angles. So this, again, is going to be important that we identify where the interior angles are. And I'm going to highlight these in blue. There are two interior angles on the same side of the transversal. So in this particular picture, we have angle 3 and angle 5 are in the interior, and they're on the same side of this transversal that's cutting through the two coplanar lines. So I have the transversal here. So angle 3 and angle 5 are going to be same side interior or consecutive interior. Then I have another pair. I also have 4 and 6 are also same side interior or consecutive interior. Now what we're going to learn tomorrow when the lines are parallel, these angle pairs are going to be supplements, but we're going to see that coming tomorrow. Then the last vocab word is called corresponding angles. And these are two angles in corresponding positions relative to the two lines. Now I'm going to go ahead and erase my highlight here so I can show you how to figure out the corresponding positions. All right, so for the corresponding angles, let me draw another transversal. I'm going to draw my J and K. And my transversal, we'll call that M. And again, it's creating the 8 angle pairs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, when we refer to corresponding, if this trick is going to help you, what you can do is draw a box around the 4 angles. And then to find the corresponding angle pair, you're going to look to see its spot in the box. So for example, angle 1 is in the top left corner of the box, and it's going to match with the angle that's in the top left corner of that box. So I can say angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding. Then I can do the top right corner of the box, 2 with 6. And then I can also do 3 and 7, the bottom left corner of the box. And then the last spot, let's do purple, 8 and 4 would be corresponding angles. And again, tomorrow when we straighten up J and K and make them parallel, these angles are going to be congruent. Now, if you don't want to draw the box around it, just know that corresponding angles are going to be on the same side of the transversal. You can sort of look like it's jumping over an angle to get to its match. So it looks like 1 jumps over 3 to get to 5, or 3 jumps over 5 to get to 7. Or again, you can think of it as 1 is inside and 1 is outside of the 2 coplanar lines. However you want to look at it, but just know that they're corresponding angles. They're both in the same corresponding positions relative to the 2 lines. Okay, so for the first one, a transversal intersects only parallel lines. This is false. All of the examples that I just did, those lines were not parallel. Tomorrow they will be, but the lines can be parallel or they don't have to be. So a transversal can intersect any 2 lines, any 2 coplanar lines. Skew lines are not coplanar. This is the definition. This is true. So skew lines are 2 non-coplanar lines that are neither intersecting nor parallel. Example 1C, if 2 lines are coplanar, then they're parallel. This is false. They could be intersecting lines. They could be skew, or no, they're not skew because they're non-coplanar, but they could be intersecting lines. So for example, if I draw a plane and I put 2 lines in here, yes, they could be parallel, but they don't have to be because they could also be intersecting lines. And then part D, if 2 lines are parallel, then exactly 1 plane contains them. And this one is true. So if I have 2 parallel lines, then 1 plane would contain them. What we're going to see coming up is when you have a diagram to tell if 2 lines are parallel, they're going to put little arrows on the line. And this would indicate that the lines are parallel. If I had a 3rd line here and it wasn't in the plane and it didn't have the marking, then this line wouldn't be parallel. So if it has markings, then I can tell that they're parallel. So if I called this line A and this line B, I could say that A is parallel to B. So the next one, notice it says that think of each segment in the figure as part of a line. So what we can imagine is, for example, this AB segment here, you can also imagine that it's also a line. That's what they just told you in the instructions. So for the first question, it says it wants us to find line, a single line or lines, if there's more than one, parallel to CD, but it also wants it to contain point A. So let me go ahead and highlight CD. It's over here. So parallel to CD, but it also needs to include point A, would be line AB. So my first answer for A is going to be line AB, and you need to put the picture of the line on top, or you could also reverse the order and call it BA. Now, if it didn't specify that it wanted point A, notice there are other lines here that are parallel to CD. You could have GH that's parallel and EF. But because it specified that it had to go and include point A, there's only BA or AB. But there are other parallel lines. They just don't include point A. So if it didn't specify point A, we could also say GH or HG, or EF. Would also be some parallels, but these don't include A. All right, then for B, a line skew to CD. So remember, skew is non-intersecting and it's not parallel. Now, because it needs to include point A, the only skew line that I would have, or there's actually two. We have this skew line AH, and AG would also be skew. And again, the order here doesn't matter. You could also say HA, and then AG would also be skew. Now, if it didn't specify point A, BG is also skew. So for perpendicular, I can say AD here would be a perpendicular. That's the only one that would include point A that would be perpendicular to CD. Now there are other perpendicular lines in this picture. If it didn't specify, we could also say line BC would be perpendicular. So this one going in here. We could also say ED or FC. These would all be perpendicular, but the one that included point A would only be AD or DA. And then the last question here, it wants a plane that is parallel to plane EFG. So let me highlight EFG. It's down here at the bottom. So the plane that would be parallel to it containing point A would be the top. So again, 3 letters. And we can call this plane ADC. We could call it plane ABD, any one of the 3 of the 4 letters around the top. And again, include the word plane in front of those 3 points. So here it says, name the given angles. So let me go ahead and highlight my interior portion. So my interior portion here is right here in blue. And then my exterior portion, I'll do in purple. So my alternate interior, remember they're non-adjacent, and one has to be on one side of the transversal and the other is on the opposite side. So we could do 2 and 7 our alternate interior. And then the other pair would be 3 and 6. And now that I've got it colored in, let me go ahead and do the exterior angles while I'm here. Let me jump down to D. So my alternate exterior would be 1 and 8. They're on opposite sides of the transversal. And then 5 and 4. Now we can go back and find the consecutive interior pairs and the corresponding angles. Now remember, another name for consecutive interior is also same side interior. So they're going to be in the blue part, but they're going to be on the same side of the transversal. So those could be, let's see if I can get another color here. How about orange? So same side interior or consecutive interior could be 2 and 3. Or 6 and 7. Get another color. Let's do green. So 6 and 7 would be consecutive interior or same side interior. And then lastly, corresponding, and I'm going to go ahead and redraw the picture so I can draw the box. So for part C, I'm going to draw a new figure. And then here is my transversal, and it's making my 8 angle pairs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, I'm going to box it. And again, I'm going to match the corresponding spot. So the top left, 1 and 3 are corresponding. And then 2 and 4 are corresponding. They're in the upper right. And then I can also do 5 and 7. And then lastly, I can do 6 and 8. They're in the bottom right. So then angle 6 with angle 8. And those are all your angle pairs. And this is the diagram for example 3C here. And that is it for chapter 3, section 1. Now, when you're doing the homework tonight, because you're just trying to identify the angle pairs, no work until you get to number 12. Number 12 will require work. Now, you're still screenshotting your score, and you still have to put that screenshot into Notability. So in your Notability file with your screenshot of your score, show me the work for number 12. That's the only question that needs work, is number 12. Now, on the corresponding, if you don't want to draw the box, you could also know that it skips over an angle, but it's going to be on the same side of the transversal.